You've probably heard of the CAGED system. It's a framework designed to help us understand the fretboard. And while it's a powerful tool to allow guitar players an initial understanding of how the instrument works, it falls short when it comes to continued education beyond just familiarization. Welcome back to the channel. My name's Chris. Today we will explore the pros and the cons of the CAGED system. Now, while the CAGED system is a very powerful and effective tool, it's important to remember that it was designed for a very narrow and single use case. It was designed to allow guitar players to apply core music theory principles to the fretboard. The CAGED system does this by leveraging the open chord shapes that make up its name, CAGED, turning those into a matrix that you can move around and basically map all the major chords on the fretboard. Sounds great, right? Well, it turns out that the very thing that makes the CAGED system so effective at that one task is also the very same thing that limits it as a holistic continued education tool. I'm going to quickly review the CAGED system and how it works. Then I'm going to explain how it works so well and why also it falls short. Then we'll zoom in and I'll show you how you'll eventually want to break free of the CAGED system, and I'll show you how to do it. The CAGED system leverages the open major chord shapes, those 5 chords that make up the word CAGED, C-A-G-E-D, and it connects them and turns them into a big matrix that you can basically move along the fretboard to create any major chord you can think of. By simply locating the root notes of this matrix, you can move it around and basically create all 12 major chords. The benefits of this system are pretty obvious. Number 1, for guitar players who learn by rote or by ear, or maybe by very pattern-based methodology, tabs and stuff like that, those guitar players lack some core context about how music actually works and how it maps to the fretboard. The CAGED system provides us with an initial view into that context. There are also a couple of drawbacks. First off, the chord shapes and patterns that the CAGED system uses are unique and specific to the guitar. And while that may seem fine, the construction of those chords specifically is not necessarily standard. In other words, while the CAGED system exposes you to these core music theory principles, it does so by inheriting some of the very limitations of the fretboard itself. Another big drawback is that the CAGED system is based on a matrix of major chords. Major chords are arguably about half of the chords we hear in modern music. Other chord types like minor and diminished, which are found in every single major and minor key and are used constantly throughout music, are not covered by this system. And that leaves learning those super important chords harder than it has to be. Let's zoom in and I'll show you what I'm talking about. The 5 chords that are used in the CAGED system are C, A, G, E, and D. They spell out CAGED, that's great. I'm going to review the system really quick. If you've got any familiarity, this will all seem like very familiar to you. But if you don't, this will give you an underpinning of how the system works. Basically, the system suggests that we're going to take all 5 of these chord shapes and stitch them together to make one big thing. In other words, one big matrix of a place where we can play all of the chords in any one of these shapes, using any one of these patterns. Let me show you how it works. Here's our C chord. This is a C shape, it's a C chord. This is our starting point, right? If I move to the next one in the system is A, basically the way the system works is you just move this shape until it becomes a C and you can connect the two. Let me show you how that works. Here's our A chord. In order to move this, I have to bar it because it's got open strings in it, right? So here it's an A sharp or a B flat. Here it's a B, and here it's a C. Notice how now the root is the same as this. Got my C here, and I got my C here, right? I've connected 2 of these shapes together. The next shape in the system is G. So here's my G chord. Now this one's tricky, but what it's suggesting I do is take this G shape and use it to move it until it becomes a C, right? So here it is a G, here it's an A, here it's a B, and here it's a C. Lo and behold, these 3 notes are from my A shape, right? So far I've got my C shape, my A shape, and my G shape. This is is a pretty hard chord to play, but I don't use this very often, but here it is, right? The next shape in the system is E, so here's my E. Got to bar it to move it. I'm just going to take this up until it becomes a C chord. E, F, G, A, B, C. Notice how it has the same root note as my G shape. So far I've got the C shape, the A shape, the G shape, and the E shape. The D shape, same thing. I've got to bar it to move it, so I've got to refinger it. D, E, F, G, A, B, and C. Another tricky chord to play, but there it is, right? So I've got all my shapes, right? These are all C chords. Notice how I stuck them all together and just simply moved them away from the nut, right? Out of the open position and stitched them all together. C, A shape, G shape, E shape, D shape. I never use this chord. It's a little bit hard to grab for me. But there it is, right? The idea being here now that we've got these stitched together is we can move them around and they all stick together so they're very recognizable and we can use them for any major chord. So just check this out. Here's my A chord, right? It's the next one in the series, right? I've got an A here. My next chord, my next shape is G. There's the G shape as an A chord, right? I've just taken it from G and moved it up to A. Next chord in the pattern is E. Here's my E, F, G, A. So far I've got my A shape, my G shape, and my E shape, right? The D shape is right here. So as you can see, I can take this idea, this matrix, and I can move it around and make any chord. I can find basically any major chord anywhere, which is pretty cool. However, here's my C chord. I'm just going to show you the notes in this chord. C, E, G, C, E. Notice how there's some duplicates in here. If I go down in sets of 3 strings from the top, watch what happens. That's enough for a C chord. That's got all the notes in a C chord, right? They're inverted, but they're all there. The C, the E, and the G. On the next set of strings in this C chord, that's also a C chord. That's a complete C chord right there. On the next set of strings, that's a complete C chord. In the open C chord, we don't even use the E string, but there's a G right here. So we can add that in. We've got another complete C chord. So in this position, where the CAGED system suggests I have 1 chord, I've actually got 1, 2, 3, 4 C triads. That isn't exposed in the CAGED system, right? Which is okay because you're just getting started. We're just getting familiar with the neck. But this is a little bit of that deeper view. C, 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 C. In my A shape, check this out. C, G, C, E, G. More duplicates, right? If I do the same thing, I've got a C chord here. I've got another C chord here. This is not a C chord though. I've got to move this duplicate up to an E. Now I've got another C chord, and this string set has a C chord on it too. Lo and behold, this is our G shape. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've got 8 shapes so far, right? Now I'm moving on to my E shape. We're still playing C chords, right? Do the same thing here. This is C, G, C, E, G, C. Let's do the same thing. That's a full C chord. That's a full C chord. That's a full C chord. This is not, but it is now. So, review. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 C chords buried inside the CAGED system, right? Here's why this is important. Let's say I want to play a C minor. C minor is C, E flat, G. I've got to change all the E's in this chord to E flats. Let me just give it a try. Here's an E here. Oh, and this E is open, so I won't be able to flat that. But let's just try to do it without this string here. Here's my E. I got to make that into a flat, E flat. it's not very easy to do. I'm never going to play that chord. It's sort of impossible to turn a C shape into a minor chord, right? With the exception of this string set, because it's got that open E, each one of these individual C triads can be changed into minor chords. So in this position, where I can't play any minor chord in the CAGED system, just using triads, I can play 3. 1, 2, 3. Same thing here. Here's my C chord as an A shape. If I want to change this into a minor chord, it's actually pretty easy because I've got an E right here. I need that E flat. You may recognize this as your sort of A string minor bar chord. The next shape in my list is the G shape, right? Let's just review these notes. C, E, G, C, E, C. So if I want to change this into a minor, I have to just find these E's. Here's one here. That goes down. This is the other E. How the heck am I going to do that? I can't do it, right? But if I look at the triads in this shape, I can change each one of these into minor. So again, in the CAGED system where I've got my G shape and there are no minor chords, just using triads, I've got 4 of them here. Right? So this is just a demo that the CAGED system does what it was designed to do really, really well. Get you that initial, oh my goodness, really? It's everywhere? I can play it anywhere I want to? Gets you that experience. But if you want to do something like make minor chords or do anything that's continued education further than just mapping major chords, you're going to have to do it in some other way, and you're going to have to move beyond CAGED. Okay, don't get me wrong. I'm not a CAGED system hater, right? I think it's a fantastic system. It's a really, really good system to get guitar players sort of on the bus. But it's not a holistic system. And if there's only one thing you take away from this video, it's that the CAGED system is a great start, but it's only the beginning. You owe it to yourself as a guitar player who's curious to find out how all this stuff works and not just limit yourself to a single system that, while it gets you some good familiarity, does have some serious drawbacks. For example, studying triads, the way the major scale generates a key. These things are universal to any instrument, and they bypass the limits of the guitar specifically, and they allow you to incorporate all of music theory principles on the guitar. Tabs for this lesson and some more context are available on my Patreon page. Head on over there if you want to grab them. And if you do decide to support the channel, thanks so much in advance. I really appreciate it. I hope you found this lesson interesting. I hope you found it valuable. Stay curious, and I'll see you next time.